Pastor Tim pastors Embassy City Church in Irving, Texas. It's a very multicultural church. He's an amazing leader. He's an amazing man of God. He's a dynamic, ridiculously good communicator. If you don't know who Tim Ross is, I'm glad that you're about to meet him. And I would highly encourage you to follow his church, follow his podcast, follow this man. He's an amazing leader, an amazing man of God. So I'm going to push a button and have him join us right now. Here he comes.
What's up, man?
What's up, dude?
How you
I miss
doing?
you.
I miss you too.
You give the best hugs.
I do give the best hugs.
And all the Embassy City family that's joining us, they already know. There's a bunch of them on here. They've been shouting you. They already know what a Tim Ross hug is.
They sure do.
It's kind of awkward when we hug because I'm 6'7" and you're not.
And that was a nice way to say it. But I have, this is what tippy toes are for, bro. This is why we have tippy toes.
Well, I just embrace you into my bosom. We just embrace. So it works, man.
Right.
Okay, this is going downhill fast. We gotta shift that gear quick. So Tim, I'm so excited to talk about this, and part of me doesn't even know what to say and what to talk about, but that's the beauty of it, and I think that's why people are so shy to talk about this. Yeah. And so you bring such a cool perspective because you were on staff. For those of you watching, you were on staff at Potter's House. So you were on staff at a predominantly African-American church for how many years?
That's right. For 13 and a half years.
13 and a half years. And then you went from there to a predominantly white church, and you were on staff at Gateway Church for however many years.
3 years.
So, and then you went on to establish your own church, Embassy City Church, which is in Irving, which is a very, very diverse congregation. In fact, it's one of the most diverse zip codes in the entire nation. And I don't know the stats you do. What are the stats?
That's correct. Yeah. So Irving, Texas, and the zip code of 75038, just a few years back was the most racially diverse zip code in the United States of America. Wow. It consistently is in the top 10 most racially diverse zip codes in the United States of America. So no ethnicity over 25%, which means that it's a real beautiful salad. I don't like to use the word melting pot.
Salad. I love that.
When you use the word melting pot, you can't distinguish one thing from the other, but it's a salad. Right?
That's really good.
You want your tomatoes to be tomatoes and your cucumbers to be cucumbers and your banana peppers to be banana peppers.
I'm an old Irving boy. I grew up in South Irving. You knew that, right?
I did. That's right.
For all the Embassy City family out there, I went to Nimitz.
That's exactly right.
Anybody else out there go to Nimitz? So, man, I don't want this to be an interview, Tim. I want us to really chat. And even those watching on Facebook, I want you guys to participate. Like, man, questions, comments. Let's keep it civil. Let's not get political. Let's not get crazy on us. But we want you to converse with us. Yeah, please. We'll talk about that too. But like converse, give us your opinion, give us your thoughts, give questions, and we'll do our best to answer questions as they pop up through here too. But I really want us to just have a great conversation about really this topic. Racism is real. And I love that we're having a conversation on it where, you don't see it talked about in church. In fact, it's really nothing new. Martin Luther King, he said 11 o'clock at Sunday morning is the most, what's the way he put it? The most segregated time of the week.
Most segregated hour in America is 11 o'clock.
Wow.
On Sundays, yes.
And what have people been telling you about when they heard about this thing we were going to do? What were some of the things they were saying? I can't believe that somebody's going to actually talk about it.
Yeah, I had feedback like I've never heard of a church or a pastor addressing racism in church in my entire life. Wow. There were so many people that were happy that you are the one that initiated the conversation, being Caucasian. Yeah. This is something this is the elephant in the room. And what happens when you don't shoot that elephant is that it poops everywhere.
I was about to say it crushes, but I like poop better.
It poops everywhere. And I don't know if you've seen elephant dung recently, but man, that stuff stacks up pretty quick. And so the best thing to do is address it head on and confront the actual topic and put it in a perspective as believers that allow us to be able to navigate America's narrative.
It's so good. Well, I want to, we've done a podcast on this a couple of times. You've been a guest on my Church InTension podcast a couple of times, and we've talked about this. Yeah. But I really want to kick it off with this. There's one thing you said that was really good in the podcast, and I think it's good for this too, is we hear this term racial reconciliation a lot. It's kind of a buzzword in culture. We need racial reconciliation. We all need to be colorblind or whatever, all these different things we use.
Yeah.
Tell the people watching this. And first, wait. So I did this before you got on. My church, Victory Church, is on here. Embassy City Church is on here. People from Gateway have hopped on. A local church in Oklahoma City called Passion Church, they're on. Another church called Celebration Church is on. Another church called Revelation Church is on. So we have all these churches coming together. So it's super, super cool environment for us to have this conversation.
Hey, think about it. If we have passion, then and get a revelation, we can have a celebration.
And we get victory.
And we can have victory, and then everyone can live in the embassy and go through the gateway. There it is. All the churches represented now.
I'm ending the call now. That's perfect. All right. Okay. What is racial reconciliation? Is that a good term?
No, it's not a good term.
Okay.
It's actually the wrong term for any believer in Jesus Christ to use. Because there is no such thing as racial reconciliation when we're talking about racism in America. By definition, the word reconciliation, broken down to reconcile, means to restore to a previous relationship.
Wow.
But there was no previous relationship between.
We don't want to go back to that.
Yeah, if we go back to that, I'm not on this call with you. Right?
No.
So we don't want to go back to that, and we need new language that works in the kingdom. We keep trying to use America's narrative to solve an issue that can only be solved through Jesus Christ. And the more we can break away and give ourselves permission to break away from America's narrative and have a conversation that is kingdom based, then we can look at racism and any other ism for that matter for what it really is, and really have some solutions for it.
So give us a different word then.
Resolution.
You would use that one. Racial resolution.
Yeah, racial resolution is a thing. It's a thing that we need to have, not just black, white. It needs to be black, white, Hispanic, Indian, Asian, Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern. Then we need to resolve that we have an issue at the core of our being as humans, that when we don't understand another person's culture, another person's ethnical ethos, that we become prejudiced, we become biased, we become stereotypical, and we need to resolve that racism is wrong and a sin. We need to resolve that there's a brokenness in this country that's never going to be solved by legislation or incarceration.
Wow.
And we need to resolve that a different conversation needs to be had altogether.
So I love the story, and I think it's here's what I love about the way you and I, converse, is we can just be brutally honest with each other, and we can come to the table and we can have just open conversations. As a Caucasian male, this is how I feel. As an African American male, this is how I feel. And we come together and have these really good conversations. And I want to get to some of that stuff in a little while. I want to like, not that I'm the spokesperson for all Caucasians by any means, but I want to ask some questions to an African American where I know it's a safe environment. And you tell me, usually I think it's, I think racism is absolutely real, 100%. But a lot of times it's ignorance on our part or the counterpart of whatever race. So you have the story that you talk about, this pastor that you partnered with. Remember this? You told me about this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
tell
absolutely.
me this story, because I think it really brings a good picture of how relationships can happen and true, honest, truthful conversations can take place.
Yeah. So, nutshell of the story is I have a dear friend named Mark McCartney who used to have a young adult conference that he would put on, and he wanted it to become more of a diversified young adult conference. So he had reached out to several inner city churches to get them to participate, and he couldn't get one of the churches to bite. And he came and met with me at Potter's House when I was there as a young adult pastor from '06. I was there from '06 to 2010 in that capacity, serving in that capacity. So he comes over, he's like, hey, I want to get some diversity at my event, and I can't get any inner city churches to be a part of it. And by inner city, let's just say Black churches, right? How about we just say that out loud? We wanted some Black people at his conference. Inner city churches. He wanted some Black people at his conference, okay? And he couldn't get none. And so we go out and we sit down. We're at Starbucks, and I'll never forget, John. We started talking, and he's like, okay, I can't get any Black people to come to this event. And I said, well, how are you advertising it? So he shows me his advertising, and he's like, well, this is like our flyer, and this is like how we're promoting it. And I said, oh, based on this flyer, it just seems like you only want white people to go to heaven.
That's it right there. That's the funny story that I love.
And he was like, whoa, what? I was like, yeah, the flyer just basically says
white people welcome.
Hey, white people, you know this person, and this person, come on over here. And we hope some Black people show up that have no context to these other people that we have build on this event, but hope they show up.
Yeah.
And I started talking about the fact that, diversity takes intentionality. And then we got raw, right? Then we started having the real conversations that need to happen. He began to tell me that, well, you know what? If I'm being honest, I really do want some inner city churches to come, but I'm really afraid of like Pentecostals. And if I invite somebody to speak, what if they start speaking in tongues? And then he got really honest and was like, Black people are long-winded, and they what if they go over time? And I'm like, oh, this is so good. Like,
honesty.
Finally,
work with this.
I can work with the honesty, yo.
Yes.
Like, I can work with the honesty. Yeah. And I'm like, well, so then that needs to be what you address, and then we can start like really having a conversation. And so we wound up becoming dear friends as a result of that. And integration was slow, but over the course of 3 years, diversity came to that event, and they've never looked back.
Go ahead.
It takes bravery. It just takes bravery to have the conversations and to address our own biases head on, to acknowledge that we have preconceived notions, to acknowledge that we have stereotypes, to acknowledge that we may have some prejudice based on our own personal experience is so healthy. But you usually can't have those kind of conversations because people get triggered when people are honest about their experience or their ignorance, right? People can't even be honest about their own ignorance without being told that they're, racist, or that they're a bigot, or that they're intolerant, or whatever. And so it leads to this very tense standoff between the two, and everyone's trying to find the right words. And again,
there's just silence because
just silence. Somebody, the other party shuts down, and they're like, I can't win this. I don't know what to do. Let me just get back home.
Yeah. And it's like that. I saw somebody write the other day. They were talking about prejudice, and I think white people can be guilty of this sometimes. And I love the phrase he used. He called it the illusion of inclusion. And it's like this. We think we're being inclusive, but it's an illusion. We're going to put one African American, one Hispanic, and one white person on the brochure, just so we can be sure that we're looking like we're inclusive.
Yes.
But it's an illusion. We're doing things in our culture without even. That's what I keep going back to. There are some insane people out there that are just like what we saw, the devastating thing that happened in Georgia. There are just absolutely insane people out there.
Yeah.
I think the majority of people are not racist. They're ignorant, or ignorant, or they have prejudice, or they have this illusion of inclusion that we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. And it would be easy to have that illusion if you are the majority and everything from your perspective looks fine from over here. Right? Like,
I'm ridiculously guilty of this. Like, one of my best friends is on here, Richard Brown. We played college basketball together, African-American guy. And we've had conversations before, and I'm like, is there really still a lot of racism out there? And he'll just look at me like, are you a freaking idiot? You lost your mind? Because as a white male, I have favor. I have it easy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I become blind just because I can't see properly,
That's right. And Jon, just you making that statement is a win for the conversation.
Yeah.
And what happens is across racial lines and ethnic lines, when people try to disavow the knowledge of someone else's experience, you've offended them in ways that are astronomical. Right? When we say stuff like, hey, you know what, if we all stop talking about racism, then there wouldn't be an issue with racism. Right? The reason why we're talking about racism is because there's still racism. Right? That I would love nothing more than to be in the skin I'm in and not have to be reminded that someone may look at me just based on my skin and determine that I don't need to breathe anymore.
Wow.
That's a reality that I have as an upper middle class citizen in the United States of America that is as real to me as the love of my children and the love of my wife. Like I wish that didn't take up my headspace. But I'm aware that there's no amount of success that I could ever ascribe to in America that won't get me from being a certain skin tone to a group of people who have a paradigm of thought that based on my hue, I am ignorant, I am less than, I am inferior to. That's a real reality. I remember when I was on the Bold Truth Tour with Josh McDowell, okay, from 2004 to 2006. And Josh is a brilliant mind, right? One of the greatest apologists we had, he's still alive. And Josh traveled all through the heartland of America, like the heartland. Like I'm talking Tupelo, Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Jackson, Laramie, Wyoming, Billings, Montana. And Jon, this was a Christian event. We had a tour bus that we stayed in and traveled to all these different cities in. It was a former tour bus of Leanne Rimes, right? So Josh bought that and we traveled all through these cities. And every single night, we lined up these cities over 2 weeks and we would go in there. And these were all Christian churches hosting Josh McDowell, all Christian events. And I have never experienced more racism than I did traveling on a Christian tour to churches. There were some churches that I went to, Jon, that the pastors of the church would not even look me in the eye and say good morning. And they're hosting an event for us that night. And you're just going, oh, so this is not just, it would be one thing if it's like the church had it all together and like,
right,
churches,
right.
You know what I mean? We're blissfully ignorant to that. I can't understand what's going on in America. But it was happening in the churches as much as it was happening outside of the church because too much of America's narrative and culture had influenced
That's the
church
key right there. Yeah.
as opposed to the church influencing
America.
America's culture and narrative. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's real.
even yeah, it's so real. And Richard, my friend, he's on here still. I remember him one time, this was years ago, whenever we were having some of these conversations, and him asking me, has anyone ever locked their car as you walked past their car? Has anyone ever pulled their purse close,
Yeah.
So it's I think, I'm not here to say it's all the white man's fault, and I'm not here to pick sides, but I do think that there's an ignorance in the Caucasian demographic that we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And I think if we would just have these sort of conversations, sometimes we would realize how far off we are. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but a couple of years ago,
John.
Yeah.
Before we go forward, can you tell me what you were feeling right then and there? Because I think it's very important for you to put that sentiment into some words. I think it would help a lot of people. What were you feeling? Or what do you feel?
I think it's a combination of what I feel for my friend, Richard.
Yep.
A man that I love and respect. He's a businessman. He owns a business. He's a father of two. He's, and then trying to, I think it's just empathy, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
And I wouldn't ever want to feel that. Like, I'm going to pick up some bananas. Why are you grabbing your purse? Like and how it would make me feel. Like, I would want to be like, what's your problem? I'm a privileged white male. So if somebody did that to me, I'm going to be like, what's your freaking problem? I'm just getting some bananas.
Right.
But African Americans can't do that either, because then they're, there's overreacting, and then the cops.
Then we're angry. Yeah. We're angry,
exactly.
and we're too triggered, and we're not sensible, and we're not civilized.
Yeah, can't you just let it go? You weren't my slave. Why are you mad at me?
Right.
Can't you just forget about slavery? And it kind of becomes this cycle, like Can
I speak to that statement about can't you just forget about slavery?
Yep.
There is this egregiously offensive paradigm of thought that slavery was a long time ago. Like, it was just so far removed, right? So let me tell you how recent slavery was. Okay, I'm 44 years old. Okay, my mom is 73. Yeah, my mother's 73. Her father would be 100 and something, obviously.
Yep.
And his father came here on a boat, slave boat from Africa.
Wow. So you're just talking 3 or 4 generations. 3. And we talk about slavery like it happened back in Jesus's day.
Yeah. Hey, racism is not a thing. Just let it go. What are you talking about? My mom was in the civil rights movement. Not even my grandma or my great-grandma. We're going back 1 generation, bro. And this is like a completely different America. So if people want to understand, why is this so sensitive to the touch? Why can the wind blow across this subject and me and all of the ancestors in my DNA kind of flinch? It's because it's so recent.
It's still a fresh wound.
It's a fresh wound that we've put a Band-Aid over a gaping hole, a Grand Canyon-esque hole in this country, and we've handed America a Band-Aid and gone, kumbaya.
Just move on.
Just move on.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
I remember a couple years ago, I think it was a couple years ago, at the Gateway Conference, Pastor Robert was speaking. I don't even know what he was speaking about, but he was talking about racism. I don't remember anything about it, but I remember this illustration he gave where he had this water bottle. It was like a Dasani water bottle, and he held. Do you remember this? He held it up and he said, "What does this bottle say?" He says, well, it says
Yep.
Dasani. And he says, no, it doesn't. It says 10% recycled plastic, blah, blah. And then he turns it around and says, see what I was seeing? And see what you were seeing?
Yeah.
We were both looking at the same thing.
Yep.
But we were looking at it from two different perspectives.
Yeah.
And we read it in a different way, even though it's the same topic, you know?
That's right.
And so sometimes it takes me walking around you asked me what my emotion was. I paused. I took my eye off the bottle from my perspective, and I walked around to my friend's perspective, and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
It was an eye-opening moment, you know?
Yeah. Well, John, you use a word that is lacking in most conversations like this, and that's the word empathy.
Yeah.
If there was empathy involved in this conversation, then we would be making significant changes.
Yeah.
Right. When I talk to people about this perspective, you go back to the founding of America. It would be intellectually dishonest to say that all the founding fathers were racist. That's just not the truth. But it would also be intellectually dishonest to say that some of them were not.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And it would be intellectually dishonest to say that none of them were like God-fearing, believers in Jesus. But it would also be intellectually dishonest to say that all of them were. If these people if the majority were reading the New Testament as it is written, we could have never called African Americans 3/5 of any person, right? 3/5 of a man,
right?
I mean, the page of Philemon, I can't even call it a book. The page of Philemon could have ended slavery. Wow. Had one of the founding fathers read it for exactly what it said.
Wow.
Right? They would have got a revelation that, oh, snap, Paul, I think Paul's onto something.
I think we may be out of line here.
Right? If they would have, there were certain slave owners that read the passage that, slaves need to obey their owners, but the verse right below it talked about the way that slave owners were to treat their slaves. Yeah. So there was definitely this extrapolation that lost context and reinforced a system, a behavior, a mindset that has been baked over hundreds of years.
Yep.
You can't Thanos snap that away.
Yep.
And that's why when you bring it up, you're talking about going down to the foundation of, America and saying, some of this foundation is wrong.
Yep.
We're going to have to take a jackhammer to
We're
the foundation of that.
Yeah. We built it on the wrong foundation, man.
That's
what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. So those are the kind of conversations that force us to deal with the narrative as it stands.
Yeah.
And not just circle around it and never really address anything.
I think the frustrating thing for me, Tim, is, any leaders are fixers, right? We want to fix stuff. And I look at this whole thing, I'm like, all right, dadgummit, let's fix this. What's the system? It's not one that I can crack. And I think that's what's frustrating about it for me. I did the other day, I wrote down this formula as I was processing through this, because, that racism is real, and what causes, maybe we can get to the root cause of racism. Maybe that's a place to start. And I wrote this down, and I want you to tell me it's good or add to it or say it sucks. That's cool too. Is I have this kind of formula, and that's not the right word for it. But I put a lack of humility plus racial illiteracy, or maybe ignorance, whatever word you want to throw in there, equals racism. So you got a lack of humility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so there was this story. Let me tell you the story. You don't know about this story because it happened a couple of days ago in Oklahoma City. Okay. In Edmond, Oklahoma, which is the South Lake of Oklahoma City. Okay.
Got
Context.
it. Yep.
And I won't get the story completely right. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But African-American delivering something. Dude, we got pause right there. Everyone look at this jug of water this dude drinks every day. Put that thing back up. Is that vodka or water? Just making sure. It's water. Okay, it's water.
It's water.
All right. So this guy is delivering a package. He's in a truck of some kind, goes into a neighborhood. It's a gated neighborhood, delivers the package. It's a one-way street. So he goes down to the end to do a U-turn in the cul-de-sac. As he's coming back out, a white male coming into his neighborhood sees the truck, sees him in the truck, pulls in front of the truck, walks over, says, "What are you doing in this neighborhood? You know, how did you get in here? It's a gated community. You don't belong here." And the guy, but so the guy was like, "What are you doing here?" And the guy's like, "I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing here." So obviously racial profiling happening, just ridiculous racism.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's this lack of humility on both sides. If the guy would have just said, "Man, look, I'm just a delivery guy and I just delivered a package to that house right there," then it probably wouldn't have been a big deal and left. He had every right to say, "Forget you. I don't owe you nothing. I'm not going to tell you nothing."
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is it becomes this downward spiral. It's like a cycle. It's like a husband and wife that are constantly fighting. Like if my wife's not meeting my physical needs, and then she wants me to meet her emotional needs, I'm like, "Well, forget you. You're not meeting my needs. I'm not going to meet your needs." And so it compounds. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So it's like if a white male becomes racial or prejudiced in some way, and then black people have been putting up with this for a long time. They're like, "Forget this. We're going to rise up." And then it's like everything just escalates.
Yeah.
So that's why I bring in this lack of humility, racism.
Yeah.
If both sides came to the table with just all humility and all brokenness, I think, this is just my personal opinion, I think the Caucasian race should initiate this, because I don't think I have to explain that. I think we should be some of the initiators of that. But I think it just kind of escalates and it like compounds, and then it's a cycle that just never stops.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like I know what the root cause of racism is. And at the root of racism is a spirit of division.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what racism is. It's a spirit of division. And racism is one subcategory of the demonic spirit of division.
Yep.
Right? Racism, classism, sexism, feminism, all the isms. Chauvinism, all the isms, right?
Yep.
It's in some way meant to divide.
Yep.
So when you get down to the fact that he wants to divide, what is the overarching thing that Satan wants to divide humanity from? It is a connection with God.
With him, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So the reason why racism can exist anywhere, not just this country, but anywhere in the world, is the reason why the spirit of division can exist anywhere in the world is because you have already accomplished dividing the creation from his or her creator.
Yep.
And as a result, with a disconnect from your creator, you cannot appreciate his creation.
Yep.
Let's keep in mind that the first murder recorded in scripture is in Genesis chapter number 4. Between two brothers that come out of the same womb. Didn't take long, right?
Yeah.
But the issue wasn't between Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
The issue was between Cain and God. And because, back to your word, because Cain wouldn't humble himself in his relationship with God and address what was in his heart, internally, he wound up taking it out on his brother externally. So in the same way, racism exists because man has not humbled himself to see himself equal with his brother, no matter what shade this individual is. Because of the pride in the heart to say that I am superior or I am above or I am more entitled, you actually disconnect yourself from God. And if you disconnect yourself from God, you're capable of doing anything to me.
Yep.
And that's what's at the root of it.
Which is the enemy's greatest weapon, is division. That's what he does. I mean, he came down and first thing he wanted to do was divide Adam and Eve. He came down to bring division right there. First act.
And so he's been able to do this on every continent, right? In Africa, there were Africans fighting Africans, right? There were wars in Africa. There have been wars in Asia and China and Japan, and there's been wars in Europe. And, when I hear people say when something like a tragedy like Ahmaud comes out, they'll say, well, what about the black on black crime that's in the inner city? And how come there's no outrage over that? Because we know Pookie killed Trey. We have context to that.
Yeah, it's good.
Duh. Right? In the same way, white people kill white people because Bubba got caught with Trisha in the trailer park, and then Rodney came over and shot him with a shotgun. We have context to that. There's been black on black, white on white, Hispanic on Hispanic, Asian on Asian. That's all domesticated violence that happens within people's cultures. What is completely outlandish and what we have no context for, which is why the outrage is what it is that I can't drive through a neighborhood without giving you the reason why I'm there.
Exactly.
And I'm coming out of it. Like, you pull in front of me, you automatically put me on edge. I don't know you.
Well, that's what I was saying a while ago. Like, if you put me in that situation, I'm going to be like, I'll kick your butt, get out of the car, I'm going to punch you in the face, right? I mean, I'm a pastor, I would never do that. But I understand 100%. I'm like, it's none of your business why I'm in your neighborhood. What are you kidding me?
And that's where the outrage is from. It's
100%.
When I have no relationship, no contextualization to other than my skin color.
Yep.
This is, I mean, if you haven't been to the African American Museum, anybody that is on here, red and yellow, black and white, you are precious in this site. You need to go to the African. Yeah, you need to go to the African American Museum. It's absolutely amazing. But I have some pictures, and if I'd have thought about it sooner, I'd have made sure you had them. But I'll send them to you afterwards. In part of the exhibition, there's actually a picture of a group of white men in suits, ties, and business hats, smiling for the camera in front of the hanging lifeless body of a black man. No one's covering their face. No one has on a hood. And
no shame.
To that, no shame. And next to that picture, John, there is a display of the Ku Klux Klan and, the hoodies that they would wear and the white robes that they would wear. And what became very, very real to me in that moment was that the hood wasn't used to protect the identities of people as they went out to do crimes. The hoods were used as a source of intimidation. White men back in those days saw nothing wrong with hanging a black person and then taking a picture next to them. Smiling, right? And there's no there's no justice coming. There's no fear of incarceration, of arrest, of a trial. And so when that's baked into a culture as well, then you can understand why the McMichaels thought that a citizen's arrest needed their weapons involved.
Yep.
In what country?
Yep.
I have a concealed handgun license. I keep my gun on me wherever I go. I'm from LA.
Okay.
So I have a completely different paradigm.
Well, wasn't your mom or dad a police officer?
My mom worked for the LAPD for 30 years. Yeah. My brother was a founding member of a gang in LA as well. And so I grew up with this paradigm between law and lawlessness, right? But moving to Texas, I'm gonna have a gun, and my gun's always on me. And the thing that I was taught, the 4 words that are permanently seared in my head from my concealed handgun training is that you never draw this weapon with the use of deadly force without imminent threat of danger.
Yeah.
When you look over I was just going to say this, when you look over the facts of the case last week that actually it was in February, but we just
Yeah.
heard about it last week, right?
Yeah.
You don't run after a person who never posed a threat to you,
Yep.
and then threaten them, and then say you were threatened, and then say it was self-defense.
Isn't there a real sense of like entitlement there? Like, where does that come from? Like, where does that entitlement?
John, I'd already be in prison, bro.
I know.
The trial would have been over. There would have been no change.org petition to sign. There would have been no outrage. I would have went to jail, bro, and that would have been it. And
do not pass go. Do not collect $100. You're going straight to jail.
Yeah, and if
two African Americans would have pulled up with a gun to make a citizen's arrest on a white male, can you even I can't even wrap my brain around what would happen in that situation.
So yeah, my brain can't handle it, right? Like it's so outlandish to me, but that is the reality that I have in this country.
Yeah.
And that's where my outrage and grief, man. I live in a very nice neighborhood. My kids ride their bikes up and down the street. And I'm gonna tell you, man, last week, after this happened, all this came out, and because I was gonna be in law enforcement and a homicide detective, if there's video of the crime, I'm watching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just my life. And so I watch it, I'm grieved, I'm angry, my soul is crushed. And then I look outside and see my boys riding their bikes, and now I feel like I can't walk away from the window.
Wow.
Because there's a lump in my throat.
Whew.
Because my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old are outside playing. And I have to think to myself, under what scenario would my two boys be considered a threat running in their own neighborhood?
And the older they get, the more of a threat they'll be.
That's where I live.
Yeah.
And I hate that I live there.
I hate that you live there. I think the thing that I wrestle with a lot as a white male is almost guilt. Like, I have to do something. Like, what can I do about this? I saw one guy the other day that was writing on this topic of guilt, and he was writing on as a white male, because I've been kind of researching this and reading some articles and stuff, and somebody was writing about this idea that this white male, he felt guilty. And then in one of the comments of this article, an African American said, I don't want you to feel guilty because that puts the white man back into taking care of us. And I'm like, I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I could totally understand where somebody would say, well, why do you feel guilty? That means you're not in control. You're not supposed to fix this. So I've just been wrestling so much. And even coming into this Zoom call, like, I don't even know what to say. I don't know,
you know what?
Like,
well, here's the thing.
There's an ignorance there. If there's an ignorance, if there's a entitlement, like, Tim, what in the world do we do, man? Like, how do we
let me say this. I think where we're all guilty is silence. If white people are guilty, they're guilty of being silent.
Wow.
You're not guilty if you speak up. You're guilty if you act like this doesn't exist.
Yep.
Right? For you to name this conversation racism is real, you are not guilty. Right? For the person that feels like there's no racism here, it's only a thing because we keep talking about it, you're guilty.
Yeah.
Right? The silence of anybody. When Cain killed Abel, the ground cried out.
Yep, that's so good.
If the ground would have stayed silent, the ground would have been guilty because it knew this was wrong.
That's so good. Okay. I had to do a Jericho lap, man. I just did a Jericho lap. That's so good.
I was about to say, what happened? But think about it. The ground cried out.
Oh, that's so good.
And if the ground cries out when there's an injustice,
wow,
we came from the ground.
Yeah.
we have to cry out. We have to be able to say racism is a sin.
Yeah.
Point blank, period.
Yeah.
We have to be able to say that prejudice is sinful. Whether it's white to black, black to white, black to Hispanic, Hispanic to Southeast Asian, the Middle Eastern, it doesn't matter. We have to call a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
And until we speak up on that, and start to have those conversations, and in the church, until because I can't change the McMichaels. There's not a march. I can't march good enough. I can't form a formation better than Beyonce can, right? like there's no formation that I could put together that's going to make the McMichaels not be who they are. Who I can hold accountable is every white person at Embassy City.
So good.
Who I can hold accountable is anybody that calls themselves a believer in Jesus Christ that holds any prejudice or racist thinking wavelengths. That person, I can check that person.
So good.
Because you can't say you're my brother or my sister, yet you hold and espouse to these views. It's a misrepresentation of the kingdom of God. And so those kind of dialogues, when we have a blind spot, you got to point it out.
Yep. Yeah, when all that first came out, and the how do I say? I'm trying to be nice when I say this.
Don't be nice, John.
It's like, well, I guess I should post something on social media. I guess I should post a picture of him, and anytime something bad happens, every pastor has to post a photo and say, I'm praying for France. I'm praying for, and this time for some reason, it just didn't feel like, it felt like, what's that? I mean, I'm going to post something and going about my life like nothing happened. No.
Yeah. It's and you're right about that. I know everybody grieves in their own way. They want to show support in their own way. So I don't knock anybody that does it, but I didn't post anything about Ahmaud Arbery. I started having significant conversations with people in my sphere of influence that I know is going to actually bring about change. I don't want to throw a penny into the ocean behind this narrative. I want to move the needle. And I can only influence what I have the ability to influence that's right around me. And that's where I take special care into speaking into, breathing into, standing in those meetings, sitting in those meetings, providing perspective, because I don't like lip service. I'm here to upset the world. I'm here to turn the world upside down with the message, love, and hope of Jesus Christ. And to that end, I feel like we all have a responsibility to influence when we can and where we can.
Yeah. And we all have influence somewhere.
We all have influence somewhere. And the conversations that we have with the people we have influence with, when you hear somebody say something ignorant, it's an injustice to not correct that.
That's good.
It's an injustice to swallow it and go, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be that guy. And I don't want people. I mean, I remember, I'll never forget this. When I was on tour with Josh, I had never been apologized so much by Josh and our team, because everywhere we went, there was somebody said something ignorant. And but what I was refreshed by is that somebody checked them. Somebody was like, you can't say that.
That's good. Yep.
Right? Like I have the beautiful thing about diversity is you learn a vocabulary that keeps everybody in mind as you're communicating. Right? Like I'm African American. My ethnicity flavors everything that I do. But our congregation is so diverse that I have to have a language that everyone can receive while I'm still being me, right?
Yeah.
It's like addressing the United Nations. But when you don't have relationships with people, our staff is diverse, our church is diverse, and so we've had conversations before where somebody white on the staff is like, I don't understand what you mean by that. And if I would have said that to all black people, they would have been like, oh yeah, for sure. I get what you're saying.
Yep.
Right? But then the white people at the church are like, I don't know what that means, bro. Like, please tell me. And I'm going, I need to make sure that I refine this before communicating it, because I don't want it to get lost in translation.
Yeah, we were in an all-staff meeting one time. I don't even remember. I was sitting here while you were talking. I was trying to remember the topic. We were going to do something as a church or announce something, or I wish I could remember what it was. It's something to do with the sermon series or something. And I looked around, and everybody at the table was white. And I was like, text Pastor Oscar, hey, can you come in here, man? And Pastor Oscar walks in, and Pastor Oscar, you may be on here. I don't even remember what that was, but I remember saying, hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? And he was like, no, man, that's stupid. And so it goes back to this ignorance factor. Like I wasn't belligerently trying to be offensive. I wasn't going out of my way. It's like this. I think we get so, if you work in a corporate setting where all you ever see are white people, you're going to become what you're around. And before that's what it was. Oscar just said them. I can't remember what that was about, Oscar. That's kind of ringing a bell, but that's not enough to bring it good enough. Yeah. So anyways, I don't remember where I was going with that, but
you're just talking about stuff getting lost in translation and bringing more different ethnicities to the room.
Yeah.
So that you can hear other people's perspective. This is why diversity and integration is so important, right? You talked earlier about, let's just line up a white person, a black person, a Hispanic person, an Asian person, and say,
all good.
We made it, right? It's all good. But that's not diversity. That's not integration.
That's the key, integration.
Integration, right? So I always talk about the fact that you can't get chocolate milk without adding chocolate.
Yeah.
Right. One of my friends said this a few years back, and I've never forgotten it. So if you take a scoop of Nestle Quick and you put it in milk, you don't have chocolate milk yet.
Yeah.
You have chalky milk.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's just one thing on top of the other. That's not integration. Yep. You need agitation for integration. Until you take a spoon or a blender and beat those two things up, then you don't have a new thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is what the book of Ephesians talks about, that Jesus in his own body on the cross took Jews and Gentiles and in himself created a new group of people. He became the agitation to break down the wall of hostility between Jews and Gentiles, covenant and non-covenant people.
Yep.
Because from heaven's perspective, that's all he's ever seen. Like God loves the races, and we know in Revelation, every tribe, tongue, and nation are going to be there. But really, all God has really ever seen is those he has covenant with and those he does not. Jews and Gentiles, covenant relationship, no covenant relationship. And with Jesus and his body, he became that agitator that put two people together and made them sit in heavenly places with Christ Jesus. I feel
like American culture is like, you use chocolate milk, and it's such a good one. And I want to segue into your book in a second, but it's like America. I'm going to use cupcakes. Okay. We're going to have cupcakes and chocolate milk. It's like you go back to the foundations of our nation. It's like we already made the batter. We've already mixed it up. We've already baked the cupcake. Oh yeah, we forgot to include African Americans and other ethnicities. Let's rub some icing on top of it. And it's like, instead of trying to incorporate it into the fabric of the cupcake and mixing it up and agitating it, we just decided to try to come over and put some icing on it at some point to make it look good. But we didn't.
Please write that down. That is probably one of the best articulations of what America has tried to do in this country. It's icing.
Yeah. Well, you've been saying all the smart stuff. I had to say something decent.
Dude, no, John. Let me just go with that imagery for a minute. Think about it. If this is only icing, this is why when you bite into it, it's still the same thing it always was.
Still there. The foundation of it is still what it's always been.
The foundation is still what it is. And so until we scrape off that icing and say, we need a new cupcake.
You know what we could do, Tim? You know what makes the best thing of all is, have you ever had a cake ball, bro? You know what a cake ball is?
Absolutely. They're amazing.
A cake ball is where you take the batter and the icing and you mix it all together. Dude, let's make some cake balls. That's the moral of the story here. We're going to make cake balls out of the cupcakes.
And there's no institution on earth better equipped to make cake balls than the church.
So good. Yep.
That's where it needs. America's not going to make that. Legislation, the Senate's not going to make that. The kingdom of God, yeah. Hollywood's not going to make that.
Yep.
They can make a movie about it, but it ain't going to be reality, right?
Yep.
The church has to be the manufacturers of these cake balls. I'm just running with this analogy because it's so good.
Let's go with it. I don't know if it'll go anywhere. People are putting hashtag cake balls, so it's making me hungry. I just wanted some cake balls, actually.
Oh man!
No, think about this though, Tim.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you? So, think about another super racially tense time in the Bible was the Jews and the Samaritans. Mm-hmm. There's all these times. I mean, you can go. You know this. That was a major discrepancy there. And what did Jesus do? He's like making cake balls out of this thing. He walks. They usually walk around Samaria on the way to Jerusalem. This time, what is the woman at the well?
John 4.
Yeah,
John 4.
So the woman at the well, he sits down and he says, "Will you get me a drink?" Jesus wasn't thirsty. He was disrupt. He was upsetting the world. He was trying to upset the system. And I love that thought. Okay. Upset the world, y'all. Yeah. Everybody watching, listening. Pastor Tim just had a book come out. I went on Amazon the other day to get one, and they're gone.
Yeah. So we're having all the warehouses were backed up. Gateway Publishing is the one that published the book, and so it is available through gatewaypublishing.com.
Okay.
But we're just now fulfilling the orders with Amazon.
John Anderson is on here. So John, come on, bro. Get this man get this dude some books. No, they did my book that's coming out later this year too. So let's talk about Upset the World. Give us the snapshot of Upset the World. And also, by the way, you'll see this thread through Tim's masterful marketing skills. His Instagram is Upset the Gram, so you should follow him on Instagram. And then he's got another show on YouTube called Upset the World, right? Upset the World?
Upset the News.
Upset the News. Yes, mm-hmm. Upset the News. So go to YouTube, type in Upset the News. And can I give the secret, or is it a secret?
It's not a secret. You can tell them.
Okay. I don't know why I'm telling your news. Tim's pregnant and he's going to have, no, I'm kidding. No, Tim. So this thing kind of got picked up by a production studio.
That's correct.
And be praying for Pastor Tim. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow, this Upset the News. You got to go watch it. Tomorrow, he's shooting a pilot through this production studio, this production deal. And it's could go on Netflix, y'all. So this is huge. Yeah. This is huge. So tell us about Upset the World. Tell us about the book. I mean, this goes right along with it, so it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So Upset the World, in a nutshell, I believe that the Bible is the most upsetting book that's ever been written, that Jesus lived the most upsetting life that's ever been lived. And as a result, we as his disciples are supposed to be upsetting others. By definition, the word upset means to turn over. That's all it means. Just like you just upset that cup to get the water out into your mouth, right?
Yep.
And so we're not talking about making people angry and frustrated, although if you live your life for Jesus, that could happen too. We're talking about turning people's lives upside down with the message, the love, and the hope of Jesus Christ. And to that end, we wrote this book that also comes with a study guide that you can purchased separately, to give people a context of how easy it is to live this type of life, an upset life that upsets others. That's the nutshell.
I love it. So you guys should get that book. Go to gatewaypublishing.com to get it, not Amazon for now.
For now, but please get Amazon up and running.
What else do you want to talk about?
How much I love you.
I love you more.
and how much I'm grateful that our relationship can provide a picture and a template by which other people can have conversations.
Yeah.
This is again, when we talk about racism being real, it's not to just highlight what's going on. It's actually to provide the solution. And the solution is very, very easy for believers. It is to be reconciled to God, your Father and Creator, so that you can have a heart for his creation. Bottom line.
Period.
We can't be brothers unless we get back to our dad.
Yep. That's good. Yes.
The prodigal son didn't have relationship with his older brother because he ceased to have relationship with his daddy.
Woo.
And when he got his relationship, he didn't try to come back and get his relationship with his brother on track. He had to come back and get his relationship with his father on track. And once he got his relationship with his father on track, then he got his relationship with his brother reconciled.
That's really good.
And that's what needs to happen.
So some of our viewers, we'll finish up here if things are wrapping up, but I don't want to stymie any good conversation. So any questions on Facebook, post your questions. I'm actually going to refresh my page real quick because I think my Facebook page went froze on me. So I'm going to refresh this.
No worries. I would love some Q&A. Let's do it.
Yeah. Somebody pop some questions in here for us to chat about or discussion points or something. It'd take a minute for people to type and get all their stuff in.
No worries.
Yeah. My thing was frozen because there's a lot of comments on here that I didn't see. Let me see here. Okay. Somebody asked us a good question.
Make sure y'all ask good questions.
Good ones. Don't ask some dumb question. People say there are no dumb questions. I've heard some dumb questions before.
There might be a couple of them.
Hey, and if you like Q&A, Uncle Tim, as somebody just referred to you in the chat, you've heard of Taco Tuesday. Pastor Tim does a talk on Tuesday. You got to do your shout when you do it. Taco Tuesday. So get on his Instagram. It's on Tuesday nights. Okay, so he just does an Instagram live.
Yep.
Tuesday for all you people. And for all you people that aren't on Instagram, come on, it's 2020. You should come on.
Instagram is the love child of Facebook and Twitter.
That's so true. Facebook is a toxic cesspool of, except for this, of course.
You have a Facebook Live and you're saying it's a toxic.
That's fair. I'm surprised they didn't shut me down for saying that, like live right now. Mark Zuckerberg just shut it down instantly.
Oh, man.
Okay, here's some questions. Here we go. How would you address racism with pastors? Woo. I don't know. I mean, it's like what you said. How could you were traveling around in churches were some of the most prejudiced? I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. If I think again, relational equity is very, very important. But John, I'm telling you use a vital word, and it's the word humility. If we can't humble ourselves to hear the truth about us, I've been a pastor for 4.5 years, man. My elders and my staff have told me some stuff that I did not want to hear, but I had to pay attention to it because they love me. And I know that they wouldn't be telling me this if it wasn't the truth. And so humility is such a prime factor, and you don't want to be under a leader that's not humble anyway.
Yep.
And so if I know that there are some overtly racist pastors of very large churches that if you were to just go straight to them and say, hey, we need to talk about, you say some things that are racist, it would be a whole thing. Well, just go away from there. Like, you got to get out of Dodge, because you can't do anything with a person that's not humble.
Somebody said, why do white pastors not talk about this? I have my own opinion. I think, and maybe this isn't just a white pastor thing, but maybe it's a across the board pastor thing. My dad was a pastor for years. And so sometimes I'm like just super vulnerable, and I'd say things, and my dad will come to me and be like, man, when I was a pastor, we couldn't be that vulnerable. We had to be straight-laced, and our ties had to be up, and we couldn't be vulnerable. I think that a reason a lot of white pastors don't talk about this topic is because a lot of pastors think they have to have all the answers. And when we don't have all the answers, therefore, this is something I can't talk about. And instead of just coming to the table and saying, look, I don't have all the answers, and man, I think I might get this wrong sometimes, and Pastor Tim, help me, and let's process through this. I think it's an insecurity. I think pastors are insecure. And there's obviously some that you mentioned, obviously, that are just flat out racists, and they have wrong mindsets. But I think the majority of pastors, I really hope so, but I think the majority of pastors are not racist. If they're prejudiced, they're unknowingly prejudiced. I think they don't know what to say. They don't know what to say. Homosexuality, name 50 things if you want. We don't know what to say. Right. Therefore, we just,
Well, a lot. I'll throw another element in there. They receive such negative feedback from their congregation when they hit on things that are biblical to hit on, right? Like, like I'm not talking about having an opinion about the Cowboys, you know what I mean, and building a theology around it. I'm talking about racism is something that we can biblically address to give our congregation a context so that they can grow spiritually and not have that mindset. But I've seen a lot of Caucasian pastors feel the wrath from their own congregation in attendance. Attendance will drop. Or they'll receive such backlash as it relates to like maybe influential people in the church or high donors in the church that threaten to cut them off, or step off the board or something like I just don't think we should be going there and da. It takes bravery to do this.
It does.
It takes fear. Absolute bravery.
So fear plays a factor. So here's a couple questions. One, commenting on, these are kind of related, I'll kind of wrap them up together. How do interracial couples navigate mocha babies? I love that mocha babies. That's awesome. And then this is a really good one.
Might be one of my people.
It might be, but this one's actually one of my peeps here. White mom here. How do I educate my black boys about things they likely will experience without causing bitterness? How do I explain to an African-American child what they're going to be facing growing up without them getting a preconceived idea and a tendency to be bitter? Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's a great question.
Because I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, it's a conversation I'm having with my boys now. They'll be 12 and 10 this year. And so we've started having the conversations that are a little bit more pointed towards the realities of what it's like to live in this country because of the skin that they're in. I think we need to be honest with them. We need to be open with them. We need to be transparent with them. And whether you're raising Black children, interracial children, you need to be having the type of conversations that allow them to understand the world around them, but also reminding them that it's not the world you've created for them.
That's good.
My boys, most likely, being where we live and how we're raised, there is a 70% chance that they bring home a white girl that they've fallen in love with, or an Asian girl or a Hispanic girl. Both of my boys are ridiculously handsome. and they live in a.
Uh-oh. What happened? Get back on, dude. We lost him. Hold tight, everybody. I'm going to try to get him back. He was in the middle of spitting some wisdom. Hold on. Hold on. Sit tight. Oh, wait. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. I don't know what happened.
Hey, sorry about that, bro. I
No,
touched this earpiece and it disconnected. Oh,
it was just
come
for
on,
a second.
Apple. Yeah, so
just for a second.
Yeah, so you know, it's a strong likelihood that my boys might bring home someone other than a black girl, and yay,
right,
like fall in love with who you want to fall in love with. It's not our reality, but it is the reality of the world.
Yeah.
So we live a certain way, and we have a certain lifestyle. We have friends that come over that are Caucasian and interracial and African, right?
Yeah.
And African American. And because I'm in an intercultural relationship. I mean, my wife is Jamaican and Bahamian. I'm American. We had a knock the first several years of our marriage culturally, because island girls are completely different than American girls. Right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and on the same page, Tim, like Caucasian families, we got to raise our kids to know better. In the same way you're trying to educate. I mean, what better place to start than our young ones? You know.
That's right.
And making sure that they're aware, and making sure that they're looking at the other side of the bottle, to use that analogy, and to make sure that they're getting this culture. Let's to go back to the chocolate milk. Let's start early. Let's make some cupcakes at an early age with the right mindset and the right culture. I wish it wasn't the case, but it might take a few more generations to really eradicate, and to really help this process happen. So I think it's important for Caucasians to say, how can I help? One of the best things you could do is raise your kids right, with the right mindset. And that's one of the greatest things we could do.
Let me just tag one more thing on there before we go to the next question.
Yep.
I'm sure you've done an exercise around this at some point in Strata. We had to identify our primary customer.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Who's the type of person that's coming to your church? Yep. And we determined that families that embrace diversity is our target audience. Awesome. And the way that we kind of elaborated on that is, if my black boys can't marry your daughters,
yes,
regardless of whatever ethnicity they are, you will not go to our church.
You don't fit. Yeah.
Because if once our kids get in children's ministry, all bets are off for who you thought they would marry, right? If you go to a diverse church, listen, these little black boys gonna start looking at some Asian girls, and
we're gonna mix it up.
Some white boys, and white boys gonna start looking at some Hispanic girls. Like, it's gonna get mixed up. And if you're deathly afraid of, I hope my daughter doesn't bring home a black guy, then you will never go to Embassy City Church, right? So I think it's very, very important, because I know for a fact I could not be the person I am if my two parents, who were both born and raised in the South and not survived, but participated in civil rights, if they held any vitriol for white people, I don't think I could have a diverse church now. I think it would have been such a hurdle to overcome, because of how baked in it would have been in my reality, that I don't think I could have had the paradigm of thought that I had now. Isn't that kind
of an ultimate test? Like, if your child, 18 years old, brings home the opposite, race, you may not think you're prejudiced, and then you're like, oh snap, wait a minute here. It was Michelle and I were talking about this like a couple hours ago. One time, who's the dude on Gateway's worship team, the African American dude that can just belt? Michael, is his name Michael?
Michael Bethany.
Yes, this dude. Yes. So my daughter one day, my daughter's 12, and she's starting to get into boys, which God, help me, Lord.
Get a shot.
And she said, one day she said, he's cute. I want to marry a guy like him, and our babies would be so cute. And I was asking Michelle earlier, I was like, what would you feel like if Michelle brought home an African-American? And Michelle was like, I think it'd be the coolest thing ever. So I grew up in this culture, Tim. I got to tell you this story. So I grew up in Mountain Grove, Missouri before I moved to Irving. Okay. So I grew up in this town of 2,000 people. No black people. It's a backwoods, Mountain Grove, Missouri. And so kind of 2,000 people. We moved from this to South Irving, and I went to Nimitz High School. And I remember calling my friends back in Missouri and going, guys, guess what? You'll never guess what happened. What? I have a black friend. I thought it was the coolest thing. I thought I was the coolest person of all time. And so, I think my parents really raised me, because I grew up in a town, obviously, where there was no African-American people. Yeah. And I don't know if this is going to sound crazy. I don't know if I saw one. I don't know if I saw an African-American until I was like 10, which is just absurd to even think.
Yeah.
But my parents, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's possible to raise your children in an atmosphere that produces the right mindset, even when the context is not even present, to know what to even teach them.
That's absolutely correct. That's exactly
I didn't have a prejudice bone in my body that I was so excited to go to a multicultural school where there's like metal detectors. I wasn't too excited about that. But I just think that's cool that my parents raised me that way with no context. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but you go back to it's a godly way. It's a
godly way.
If you meet at the Father, then you're going to raise your kids.
That's right.
In that way.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's commenting on the colorblind thing. So comment on that while I find another question.
Yeah, colorblind is
just say
offensive.
It.
Yeah,
there
it's offensive.
Just say it.
It's offensive and disrespectful to say, I'm colorblind. I don't see color. I know what you're trying to say, but again, let's just lose that language.
Yeah.
Because if you don't see my color, you can't see me.
That's good.
If I don't see your color, I can't see you.
Yep.
I'd rather somebody say, your color doesn't bother me. I can deal with that better than colorblind. Right? But
just to refuse that part of you is to refuse you altogether.
Oh my God. When I see you, I don't see a black man. Then what the heck do you see?
Yep.
Because that's who I am.
Yeah. So I got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
You sure?
We're twinning right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, we should probably shut up soon. People are still watching. I can't believe it. Okay. So my youth pastor at Victory Church, who's an African-American, I lost his question. Oh, here it is. Is your staff intentionally diverse based on where your church is and the demographics of your congregation, or based on a personal church staff culture? I think what he's trying to say is, we've talked about this before. So a church in Southlake, Texas, right? How does a church in Southlake, Texas, or Edmond, Oklahoma, or wherever else create a culture of a multicultural thing when the predominant demographic of the city is one or the other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Potter's house is predominantly African American. Gateway Church is predominantly white, and it's not because either one of them are racists.
That's exactly right. It's the demographics.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, like a Gateway Church is 97%. South Lake is 97% Caucasian.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how do you get diversity there? You're intentional about it, right? It's not just that I'm going to hire somebody that is not white on purpose. And I'm putting them on the platform. Is on purpose, right? I remember we hired our executive pastor. He actually started on March 16th, the day the world changed, right? Wow. The day Corona took over. But I hired him through Vanderbloemen, which is a search firm, and blah blah blah.
Yep. Or William.
So they asked me. They said, you know, we're going to go out. It's a nationwide search, and we're going to get the most qualified candidates, yada, yada, yada. What is your preference for this particular? Do you have a preference in ethnicity? And I said, white. Bring me a white man.
Need a white boy. Bring me a white boy.
Bring me a white man. Bring me a white woman. I said, and then I said, if they're not white, then bring me Southeast Asian and Hispanic. Now, there's some black people that be like, I can't believe that you wouldn't hire a black person. I would hire a black person. And I do have black people on staff.
Yeah.
But for this particular role, I'm going to be in, again, you don't get chocolate milk without adding chocolate.
That's good.
I will really not be berated or debated on the fact that I am being intentional about getting people in the room. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Okay. Because I have to have Bible. I have to have a Bible for everything. God told Peter to go to Cornelius's house.
Yep.
At that point, book of Acts from chapter 1 to chapter 9, it was all Jews. Until Acts chapter number 10, God intentionally tells Peter to go to Cornelius's house, a non-Jewish Italian man, and said, make sure this guy gets the Holy Spirit and comes into the fold. And then we have to have the Jerusalem Council in Acts chapter number 15. And then they're like, oh, snap, I guess he does want all nations.
It was intentional. God
was intentional.
Yeah.
I got Bible, bro.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, there has to be an intentionality. You can't just have diversity in your head. It has to be in your heart. Whatever's in your head, you try to strategize. Whatever's in your heart's going to easily come out. And so this got down in my heart. And once it got down in my heart, we started to build a tapestry that when people walk in, they go, oh, okay, these guys are pretty serious.
They're intentional.
That's right. We're intentional about this.
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
I like you, Tim.
I like you too, John.
So I want you to come to, I tried to get you to come one time and you weren't available, but I want you to come preach at Victory Church for me soon.
I love to.
I think our people would like you.
I like them already. I like you, so I know I like them. Yeah.
That's right. Well, we've already gone longer than any other one of these that I've done, which has been awesome. But
I've loved it, man. I mean,
man, it was so much fun.
We can't talk about this enough, right?
It's so true.
And it doesn't have to be painful, and it brings up pain. This is why you got choked up. This is why I got choked up. Because the reality of it is so antithetical to what Jesus died on the cross for, that it should break our hearts.
Yep.
But I don't want to perpetuate America's narrative. Kind of the takeaways from this as we wrap up. I don't want to perpetuate America's narrative. I don't want to perpetuate anger and bitterness and hatred. Right? It's just like, oh, well, see, another white person murdered another black person. Therefore, I hate all white people.
Yep.
All white people are devils. All black people are angry, and black people are racist too. And that's not the kingdom.
Yeah, it's not.
If Jesus came into this, he would piss everybody off.
Yeah, he would.
Because he wouldn't have both sides, because he wouldn't have the conversation you want him to have. Anytime Jesus comes into anything, he comes to upset it. That's why I wrote that book.
Yep.
Because it doesn't matter where you are. If you're a billionaire, he's going to upset you. If you're poor, he's going to upset you. If you are educated, he's going to upset you. If you are uneducated, he's going to upset you. If you are high, he's going to bring you low. If you are low, he's going to put you high. Like, he comes to upset us so that we really see him for who he is. And when we are reconciled to Jesus, and we have our right relationship with God, the Creator, then we can see each other as brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
and become the fraternity and sorority that God always intended us to have as humanity.
I'm gonna have to watch this again myself, I think.
Me too. On my wife's Facebook account.
Me too. All right, let me make sure there's nothing too profound being said over here before we hang up.
Yeah, I'm in a flow now. We can keep going.
He's got to. You got to pee by now, Surly, man. You've been drinking. We could take a break if you had to.
My bladder's.
Do you drink that whole thing in one day?
One day, man. A gallon of water a day.
That's more than 1 gallon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit over a gallon, but.
Do you have to drink the rest of that before the end of the night?
Yeah, and I will. That's not too bad.
You're gonna be up all night.
No. Well, man, actually, I can't be up all night tonight. I gotta preach tomorrow. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We need to hang up for you, dude. You got to preach 2 sermons tomorrow, and do your show.
Yeah, it'll be there.
Okay.
I love you. Everybody, is everybody clear? Everybody's hearts and
too.
minds clear in Facebook land?
As far as I can tell, everybody at Victory Church wants you to come, so we'll make that happen. And I don't see any question marks, really.
Cool.
All right, man.
I love you so much, man.
I love you too. Why don't you pray for us before we
Absolutely.
get out of here?
I would love to. God, I'm so grateful for everyone that tuned in to just watch 2 friends talk. And God, I pray that there was something said that brought clarity, that gave perspective, brought healing, and brought just truth to people's hearts and minds. God, I pray that racism as we know it would not be seen amongst brothers and sisters that declare that Jesus Christ is Lord and God raised him from the dead.
Yeah.
I pray that every person that is reconciled to God would be reconciled to their brother and their sister, regardless of their color or their creed. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for giving us an opportunity to live in a way that most Americans can't. Side by side, hand in hand, brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ. A priesthood and a family that can upset the world. Let it all be for your glory, none of our credit. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.